because, as we said, is a great achievement to add a race in Cape Town. It's very important for the sport, but I wanted to explain why it's so important and why Formula E is becoming so important for the automotive industry in general. So, as you can see, we try to explain very visually how appealing has become the sport in only 9 years for automotive. You have 6 constructors involved in the sport and a total of 9 car brands involved out of 11 teams. This is an achievement that no other motorsport with much longer history than Formula E has done so far. So there are more car brands involved in Formula E than any other motorsport. And there is a reason why, and I will explain in a moment. As Nissan, we are one of the 6 constructors. What does it mean? That we develop the car. So we produce the car first before even going racing with it. But then we have our team, the Nissan Formula E team, of which I'm the team principal, but we also give the car to McLaren. So McLaren, which is one of the most prestigious racing company in the world, is racing in Formula E with the Nissan car. They participate only, inverted comma, as a racing team. So they manage the car, they manage the drivers, they prepare the car for racing, but they use a Nissan-produced car. And the same happens for other manufacturers like Stellantis. They have their own DS team, but they give the car to Maserati as an independent team, etc., etc., etc. But why I wanted to show this slide? Because, again, I want to stress the fact that there are more car brands involved in Formula E than any other category, and this is for a reason. Because it's totally relevant in the production of R&D for electrification, for the car industry. I will explain why Nissan is in Formula E, to go directly to our job. So, on the left, you can see 3 big values, if you want, that we generate as Nissan Corporation by participating in Formula E because of the reason and the characteristics of Formula E that you see on the right. So first of all, Formula E is the best way for us with the Motorsport project to promote our plan Ambition 2030. I guess you know that Nissan has this very ambitious plan to electrify the portfolio very fast and to transform our portfolio very fast and to have the majority of the portfolio electrified by 2030. And why Formula E is great to do that? Because it's the pinnacle of electric vehicle racing. There is no other motorsport category in the world as important as Formula E. It's the fastest, the most innovative, the most global EV, pure EV racing category in the world. So it's great to promote this commitment. Secondly, Nissan has another corporate objective which is very important, which is our commitment to turn our operations carbon neutral by 2050. So a commitment in sustainability. And Formula E is the first sport that could claim to be carbon neutral since the inception. So for 9 years now, the sport has been carbon neutral. This commitment of Nissan, by the way, by 2050 might sound far away, but 2050 is the day after tomorrow for a company like Nissan, with the dimension of Nissan, and considering the number of cars we sell, the number of plants we have, the number of offices we have, committing to be carbon neutral by 2050 is really, really, really a challenging target. So again, we use Formula E to promote this objective as well. Finally, global activation. What does it mean? Formula E is an FIA World Championship, which means it's obliged to race in many continents. It cannot be, it cannot be limited to Europe, it cannot be limited to Asia, it cannot be limited to Africa, it cannot be limited to the US or to Americas in general. In fact, we race, as you can see, the calendar is global. And this gives to Nissan the possibility to promote, as I said, electrification and sustainability globally. But there is one thing which is very interesting. Nissan is the largest car brand involved in Formula E in terms of volumes. There is no other car brand involved in Formula E that can claim, like Nissan does, that we sell cars in every single market where we race. We have operations almost in every single market where we race, and we have a global footprint, more than anyone else involved in Formula E. So, so this makes Formula E perfect for us to promote our brand. But there is one more consideration that for me is important to share. We use Formula E to produce marketing contents, PR, events like this to promote our commitment to electrification, sustainability, as we just said. But this promotion would be probably weak if there was not a direct connection, genuine direct connection between our R&D department and the car. That's why at the beginning I showed you there is a big difference between the car brands involved in Formula E when they are independent teams. So like McLaren is a team, Maserati is a team, they buy the car from a manufacturer, and when you are a manufacturer, Nissan is a manufacturer, we have our racing team, but we produce the car. And why this makes a huge difference? For what I try to visualize here in a very simple way. Nissan, let's not forget, is a pioneering in electrification. We started again, before anyone else, to mass-produce electric vehicles 12 years ago. Maybe we've been shy in promoting it, but we are the first ones, before Tesla and before other brands. But we produce prototype for 70 years, prototype of electric vehicles. What does it mean? That when we enter Formula E, we enter with an approach that we called road to track. So we started to share our expertise from the core business into the development of Formula E, of the Formula E car. But now with Generation 3, and I will explain what is Generation 3, we are closing the cycle, starting developing additional R&D and IP that we will transfer back to our core business in the future. And the reason why Formula E is so good for that is because when you see a Formula E car, bodywork, chassis, and most of the mechanical parts are the same for everyone. What is developed by the manufacturer, so again, when you play the role of a constructor in the sport and not just a team, is the electric powertrain, inverter, gearbox, and motor, plus all the softwares to manage the vehicle, and the vehicle efficiency and the energy management. So what does it mean? That all our investment in the car development is relevant for the core business. Why? Because we race competing in how to make the vehicle efficient, how to make the hardware as efficient as possible, how to make the energy management as sophisticated as possible. This is where, at the level of car, we compete between manufacturers. And these areas, the efficiency of the hardware, the sophistication of the energy management software, are the areas where manufacturers fight on the car business level for road cars. When you look at the road car, for the platform, so taking apart design, interiors, which are very important as well, but when you look at the platform, so the powertrain, we fight to make the most efficient and the most sophisticated energy management of the platform. So this is how relevant this sport can be for electric vehicles in the core business. And this is why we do it, and why we believe that then when it comes to promoting electrification and to promoting sustainability, we are credible, because there is R&D of Nissan involved in the car development. So, we use Formula E also in a way to extend this investment in innovation on other projects as well. Not purely focused on the Formula E car, not purely focused on the transfer of expertise from Formula E to the electric vehicles in the future. So, for instance, I just mentioned some. We have the Nissan Leaf Nismo RC, which is a prototype that we developed using real Leaf parts for a high-performing prototype for truck usage only. Again, to show how the electrification, our expertise in electrification can be transferred, and in this case, exactly the same parts of the Nissan Leaf to produce a high-performing vehicle for truck. We also developed a concept that we call Nissan Ariya single-seater, where we want to showcase how also the powertrain of Ariya, together with the e-Force technology, could be transferred to a single-seater racing car. Why single-seater in this case and not a GT car like the Nissan Leaf? Because in the motorsport world, the difference between a GT car and a single-seater is how fast single-seater can go in corners, and how strong is the control of the vehicle in corners, which is exactly what we do in the area with the e-force technology, to give a total control of the car. So we want to showcase how we can put this to the extreme performance of a single seater, using exactly the powertrain of Aria and the e-force technology to make a single seater fast. Another project we are working on, we call it Brain to Performance. This is the application of researches that have been done already by Nissan years ago, brain to vehicle, that analyze how the brain works while you're driving and how to develop some training programs for your brain to make driving more exciting and better for the drivers. So we are applying the same researches to our Formula E drivers to understand how differently their brain works compared to a normal driver, and why not, how we can have training programs to actually improve their skills. That obviously improvement that could be very tiny, but we win with very tiny improvements in Formula E. The distance between cars is always very, very tiny. So this is just to show how the potential of whatever you learn from Formula E in terms of R&D, driving skills, etc., can be extended in other innovative areas for the company, not just specifically on the EV products that we are producing for the future. Then I also wanted to put some context of where we are today, because we mentioned at the beginning the beginning of a new era, and we say always new era has begun. And there is a reason why, because some people might say, yes, but actually Nissan has been in Formula E already for 4 years, which is true. We actually started the project in 2018 during the so-called Generation 2 of the sport. So 4 years cycle with the specific technical specs that I listed there. And, but we enter it more like, okay, we are a huge manufacturer, we enter the sport, we enter in partnership with someone already working in the sport. So the racing team was called Nissan eDams because it was independent from Nissan. And so it started as a project which was definitely great to promote our expertise in electrification, but we didn't have a direct involvement in the operations. And that's why we focus now from season 9, so from this year, and the next 4 seasons. Because the sport has grown meanwhile, the level of power we have in cars is much higher, the level of efficiency in cars is much higher. This car will recover around, depends on the track, but it can recover almost 40% of the total energy you need to finish a race. So the level of efficiency and the regeneration is very high. So this is exactly the right moment for us as a corporation to enter and to do everything ourselves. So we developed the car as Nissan and we bought the team. The team now is called Nissan Formula E team. We bought it last year in April, and we are now in total control of the racing operations. That's why for us, this year is very important, because it's the beginning of what we call a new era, and that's why we use the Sakura livery as well to represent the beginning of an era for Nissan, apart from the strong Japanese DNA, of course. And just a few words on the car again, I think is important mentioning it. The max power that we have with the new cars, so the cars that you will see tomorrow, is 350 kilowatt on the rear motor, which is the one that has the traction, generates the traction of the car. Then we have another motor on the front, which is 250 kilowatt, which is dedicated only to the regeneration. This means that when you regenerate with front and rear axle, you can reach a maximum power of regeneration of 600 kilowatt. That's why the car is so efficient. And it is an impressive R&D that we can generate for the core business. And all these specs are the same for everyone. So when we develop our powertrain, we know that we cannot go over 350 kilowatt, the same Porsche, the same other competitors. And so the power output is fixed. The battery is the same for everyone, so the quantity of energy you can store in the battery is the same. The regeneration maximum power is the same for everyone. So where do we compete? And again, just to go back again on what I was saying before. We compete on how this hardware is more efficient than others. So how efficiently we transform the energy that comes out from the battery into traction. which is exactly what you want to do with the electric vehicles. How efficient, that you want to maximize this efficiency. In Formula E, we don't disclose the number, but this efficiency is higher, net higher than 95%. It means that only actually less than 5% of the energy coming out from the battery is transformed into noise and heat. The rest is all traction. So imagine how much we can learn from there to transfer to our core business. And the same, the energy management. We lose or win races based on how good you have planned the usage of the energy during the whole race, not on who is the fastest in one lap. And this, the software can be actually translated in a way in our vehicles that can be utilized like in this scenario to go from A to B in a sporty way or in a comfortable way, exactly thanks to the energy management. So this is the second area, as I said before, where we can learn a lot from the sport. Few words on the drivers, and I apologize if I went long because maybe you want to ask some questions. We have 2 new drivers. This was another bold idea that we had when we started Generation 3. Normally in motorsport you don't change both drivers at the same time. You want to keep one always to have some continuity. But we decided to change both, again because for us everything starts now as a project owned by Nissan. And our 2 drivers have different profiles. Sasha is our rookie, is the youngest driver in Formula E, but we think also one of the most talented. And we took him from Super GT Japan, where he was racing already for a few years, so that's why we know him very well. And I don't go through the details, is our young, talented driver that I'm sure will be very, very successful in Formula E with us. And Norman Nato is the other driver that we took with more experience. He's older, he won already 1 race in Formula E, so we wanted to have different profiles. But both are new for us, we are happy with them. And let's see what they will be capable to do tomorrow. Just one note, today was free practice. Sasha arrived in 3rd position testing the high power of the powertrain, so 350 kilowatt. We can test the powertrains at 2 levels, 350 and 300. So Sasha arrived in 3rd position in free practice, and Normal in P1 with the 300 kilowatts. So far, testing is going well. It doesn't mean anything. In motorsport, nothing means anything until the last lap of the race, not even qualifying. we just want to know where we finish at the end of the race. But just a note, they are very good there. And finally, what we saw in the video, this is again marketing, but for us represent all the contents I shared with you until now. We decided to have this Sakura livery on the car that we launched last year, end of November, and it was very successful in terms of the coverage it generated, exactly because we think that it is the best way at the same time to communicate our Japanese DNA. The team now is really Japanese because we own it and we manage it, and it's the beginning of a new era. So that's it. I think this is my last slide. Sorry, maybe I went long, but if you have any question, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.